Greetings, everyone. This lecture is going to be on Plato's Allegory of the Cave. Um, the Allegory of the Cave, like many of Plato's writings, is written in the form of a dialogue. The Socratic method gets its name from these dialogues. Socrates, the teacher of Plato, prided himself on not claiming to know things that he didn't know, and believed that by admitting his ignorance when he had ignorance, he was much closer to the truth than folks that pretended that they knew things for sure. He asked a lot of tough questions, and he challenged assumptions through a series of kind of question and answer written as a dialogue between Socrates and other people on a number of philosophical issues. The Socratic method is used to put ideas to the test. In law school, especially your first year, everything is done through what's called the Socratic method. So the teacher cold calls a student, and you'll experience this if you go to law school one day, and they say, tell me what this is about. Tell me what this case is about. And then they proceed to ask a bunch of tough questions, challenging everything the student says sometimes, and making the student defend their position, and helping the other students learn through all of the things that come out through this discourse approach to learning, this back and forth. Well, we'll find when we read the Apology in Module 2 that people didn't react very well to Socrates challenging their dearly held assumptions. The Allegory of the Cave is Plato explaining what he thinks is going to happen to the philosopher in a society who challenges fundamental assumptions. There are a number of things going on in the Allegory of the Cave, namely the idea that Plato was trying to express, that everything we see in the world around us, triangles, circles, trees, everything, is an imperfect copy of its perfect form that exists in this transcendent realm, the world of the forms. So anytime we see a circle in the real world, in experience, through observation, anytime we try to draw a circle, it will never quite be a perfect circle. These are all imperfect copies of the pure and perfect form of these things that exist in the world of the forms. The Allegory of the Cave, however, it's very accessible to a lot of people on another level too, because it has to do with what happens when one has an awakening and others around them aren't ready for it. So the Allegory of the Cave was written about 2,400 years ago. Plato wrote The Republic, where he examined subjects like truth, justice, beauty, happiness, education, and the ideal society ruled by a philosopher king. And we'll explore more about the ancient Greeks and their idea of an ideal society later on. So The Republic is Plato's book containing the Allegory of the Cave, a dialogue between Socrates and Plato's brother Glaucon. Plato said that the human condition is like being chained in a cave, so that your line of vision is restricted to only being able to see shadows cast on the wall of the cave. So imagine a bunch of prisoners who have only lived in a cave, and because of their prisoner status, they are chained such that they can only see the wall of the cave. So their entire experience of the world, their entire understanding of reality, is based on the shadows cast of the actual things themselves. But because this is the only reality that the prisoners have ever known, they believe that this is reality. Plato said that everything they're seeing is an imperfect reflection rather than the thing itself. One day, one of the prisoners breaks free and steps out of the cave into the outside world that he didn't know existed. He struggles as his eyes take time to adjust to the sun, but when they do, he discovers that the things around him are real. So imagine this prisoner breaking free and exiting the cave and seeing the sun for the first time. And as his eyes adjust to the sun, because first they hurt, right? As they become more adept at seeing things in the sunlight, the prisoner who has escaped comes to find that the shadows that he's been observing his whole life are an illusion, that they're shadows cast of a thing itself, the thing that really truly exists, that he can finally see in the light of the sun. When the freed prisoner returns to the darkness of the cave to free the other prisoners, their eyes will now have been blinded by the light of the sun, that prisoner who escaped. And he'll have a hard time seeing those shadows on the wall when he goes back to free the other prisoners. The fellow prisoners are still inside the cave and will believe that it is the outside world that's harmful. To them, the truth is not worth seeking, because the way they see it, the freed prisoner returned stupid and blind, saying things that just didn't make sense. And they violently resist any attempts on that person's part to free them too. So the person who has left the cave will not be able to exist as they once did. In fact, they may even come to pity or feel superior to those who remain in the cave. The allegory essentially demonstrates the conflicts between knowledge and belief and what happens to a person once they've been enlightened. It's an examination on the nature of humanity and the fear of the unknown. Many of you will have seen The Matrix. There's a blue pill, red pill analogy that's often applied to Plato's Allegory of the Cave. People saw a lot of parallels between The Matrix and the Allegory of the Cave. In one part of the film in The Matrix, and forgive me, I haven't seen this in 20 years, the main character is offered a blue pill or a red pill. One of those pills will make him forget all of these hard questions he's been asking, all of these assumptions that are shattering, and allow him to return to his normal life in the cave, metaphorically. The other pill will allow him to be freed from the cave and learn the truth. So the main character has to decide, as we all do. So there are two entirely different worlds here: life inside the cave and life outside of it. This is obviously a very rich metaphor. So in its conclusion, Socrates and Glaucon agree that the other prisoners would likely kill those who try to set them free. They would not want to leave the safety and the comfort of their own known world. People are often hostile to having their ignorance pointed out. So the freed prisoner represents the philosopher trying to educate the public, perhaps. So one perspective is, this is what happens, what happens to the hypothetical freed prisoner who tries to then free the others and gets killed in it, is an analogy kind of based on what happened to his teacher, Plato's teacher, Socrates. Plato's opinion of society seems to be potentially influenced by what happened to Socrates. As, Plato opposed Athenian democracy in favor of rule by philosopher kings because he saw what the Athenian democracy did to his teacher. They killed him. So Plato's theory of the forms is another element in the story. People have pointed out the relation to the philosophy regarding the ideal form of things being distinct from the imperfect reflections here on earth. So the form of perfect roundness, of perfect beauty, exists in this transcendent world of the forms. Plato's theory of the forms asserts that the physical realm is only a shadow, an image, of the true reality of the realm of the forms, life outside the cave in the sun. The forms are abstract, perfect, unchanging concepts or ideals that transcend time and space. They exist in the realm of the forms. The allegory of the cave brings up a lot of big questions. What is the origin of real knowledge? There's a problem of representation, symbolism, the nature of reality itself. How do we shine a light on things? Well, we'll have to question all of our assumptions. We'll have to begin thinking for ourselves. We'll have to examine these things with an attitude of discovery, putting our interests and emotions aside, and including those having to do with what others may think of us.